Here at the 2025 Los Angeles Auto Show, we've gotten our best look yet at the new 2026 Rivian R2, and we've also seen the new 2026 Jeep Recon, two new all-electric SUVs that are coming in early 2026. How do the two of them stack up? Let me walk you through it. The first thing to compare is the size. Now, the Rivian R2 is roughly the size of a Ford Bronco. It's shorter than you'd expect in terms of overall height, but it's got a wheelbase that's longer than the Jeep Recon, so the interior volume is pretty sizable. Now, we don't have all the specs for the new R2 just yet. Those will be coming later this year. So we don't have things like cargo room, and we don't have things like total passenger space. But the actual Recon is bigger than this thing. We have noticed a couple of interesting details, like the Rivian is actually considerably lower in terms of its roofline than the Jeep is, but it has a higher ground clearance than the off-road spec Jeep. So there are some curiosities in between the two. The Jeep Recon is actually significantly larger than we expected it to be. It's longer than a Jeep Wagoneer S, and it's significantly taller as well. We also don't have all of the specs in terms of the R2's powertrain, but we do know a couple of things. First of all, there are going to be three different versions of it: a single motor, a dual motor, and a tri-motor, just like the larger R1s, with varying degrees of increasing performance. We also know that Rivian is targeting over 300 miles of range. Now, that definitely puts it ahead of the Jeep Recon, which currently sits at about 250 miles of maximum range. In terms of a 0 to 60 performance, well, the Recon goes at about 3.6 seconds, but the Rivian says they're going to be doing it in under 3 seconds. So there's also going to be quite a significant performance gap. We do have specs for the Recon, however. It makes 650 horsepower and 620 pounds-feet of torque, but only goes about 250 miles thanks to its 100.5 kilowatt-hour battery. Now let's talk interiors, because there's some clear differences here between the new Jeep Recon and the Rivian R2. First of all, you might notice something missing: doors and windows, frankly. Just like the Jeep Wrangler, you could take the doors and windows off of the new Jeep Recon for that open air experience. Now, that's led to some interesting decisions about interior materials. The Recon's interior is very much a elements impervious kind of thing. Things you can wipe clean, things that aren't easy to stain. And that means they're a little bit cheaper than you might find in the Rivian R2. The R2 feels a little bit more upscale, a little bit nicer inside, but it also doesn't feel as big as the Recon. But it's the interior space of the Jeep Recon that's really surprised us. It feels considerably larger than the Rivian R2, especially when you're talking headroom. It is a lot taller than the R2, and all of that headroom above really leads to this feeling of open air spaciousness. But there's also a lot of passenger room in either the front row or the back row. That leads us to think that the R2 is just not quite as big as the Recon inside. But the biggest difference between the new Recon and the Rivian R2 just might be in how it's been priced. Rivian maintains that they're going to be able to bring the new R2 to market for around $45,000 to start, and it could range all the way up to around 70 grand if you're talking about a high-performance tri-motor. The new Jeep Recon, it starts at $68,000. Now, that is for a loaded-up Moab off-road launch edition style model, so hopefully there will be less expensive versions of the Recon coming soon, because that's going to be, I think, a sticking point for the Recon. They don't have a shortage of expensive Jeep SUVs right now. They could use something more affordable. And if Rivian is going for that mass market play, they're going to have to look at the pricing on the new Recon. If you'd like to learn more about the new Jeep Recon or the new Rivian R2, you can look everything up at Cars.com/news.